Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about Benito Cereno. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. So, Benito Cereno, very interesting work here. Lots of things are happening. Basically, what you have is Benito Cereno. He's a captain of a ship, and the ship gets taken over by slaves. So the slaves that were on board, the slaves that were taken over, they take over, they kill all the people who are in charge, and they keep a few alive, and they become, the leaders of the ship. Benito Cereno was captain. Now he's not. His personal servant Babo is really truly the captain. He's the captain of the revolt, and so the slaves follow him. So now the slaves are the captains. They are in charge of the ship. And then there's another captain that comes along and he sees the ship drifting out at sea. And, this is Amasa Delano. Amasa Delano comes on board and he's like, what is going on here? Why are these slaves not in chains? Why is this ship so weird? Why is there so, why are the slaves running, moving around freely and without anything holding them back? And it looks very strange to Delano, and he pretty much Delano just walks around the ship, asks a lot of questions, and he has this own investigation of his that's quite interesting. It's a very interesting investigation, and basically, after he just doesn't see it, he doesn't notice that this is a revolt, and the slaves they really put on a show. They make it seem like Benito Cereno is in charge. They really pull the veil, or I guess you could say they really make it seem like Benito Cereno is still in charge, that he's the big boss, that he's the one calling the shots when he's not. Very interesting work here, how this takes place. And basically, what happens is that Benito Cereno, he knows that this is not, you know, he's like Delano doesn't see it. He doesn't see it because like for a good while or throughout the whole work here, it's almost like that Delano is like, well, this is completely acceptable. Slaves are so well behaved that they don't even need chains. It's like this modern way that slaves behave, and the story goes on. And you know, uh, Babo, that's the leader. Again, Babo is the leader of the revolt. He's the one that is the personal servant of Benito Cereno, and Babo is pretty much throughout the whole work. He's making sure that everything stays on track, that Amasa Delano doesn't figure out what's really going on, uh, that it's a revolt, that the slaves are actually in charge. And the slaves, they pretend so well. They're great actors here, really showing Delano he shouldn't care about anything because really, Cereno is still in charge no matter what. And Cereno he goes along with all of it because he knows his life is in danger. If he, Babo is always at his arm. So like, if he tells Delano anything, he could die by the hand of Babo. Eventually, Babo, Benito Cereno, Delano, an authentication goes through, and when Babo is on, their ship, Delano's ship, he gets captured, and then the rest of the slaves, they pretty much, they try to maintain the ship as much as they can, but then Delano's men, they go after the ship, they take back the ship, they put the slaves back in chains, and everything is uncovered that it was a revolt, that all the men who were formerly in charge, they were all killed off by Babo and his men. And then later Babo, they all this goes to court, and Babo is sentenced to death. His head is cut off, his body is burned, and the other slaves get punished. The dividing of property. Some slaves were killed, some slaves weren't. Some were spared. Babo dies in the end, and even Benito Cereno, he dies in the end after spending 3 months in a monastery. And Amaso Delano, he's the one that uncovered this, but he truly didn't uncover it until the end of the work. He really thought there was such a thing as, people willingly wanting to be slaves, and, without chains, without force, they were willingly allowed themselves to be slaves. So they really pulled, a fast one. They really pulled the veil over Delano's eyes, and they really, it was like a Broadway performance, the way that the slaves behaved to pull it off. That no, 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 Benito Cereno is in charge here. We're not in charge. This is not a revolt. It's only after when, he really figures out that, oh, Babo's really, in charge here, and Benito Cereno is scared for his life. It's really when this is uncovered to him that he starts to think back to, when he was on the Cereno ship. He saw a black boy, attacking a sailor, and he was like, "Oh man, that's kind of strange. Why is this slave attacking, someone that should be his master, or someone that should be above him?" Or all the weird things he saw, like the slaves sharpening weapons. It all kind of makes sense, because it's like, oh, these are not obedient slaves. These are, people who revolted, and they're just trying to trick me into believing that, oh, they're just so well behaved. That's why they're not wearing chains. Again, very fascinating work. And it has a really sad ending, because Babo at trial, he doesn't defend himself. He doesn't say anything. He's pretty much silent at trial after they capture him. Because, I mean, truthfully, honestly, he knows that he's not going to survive. They are going to kill him. He's the captain. He's the slave, the former slave who started it all. So, they pretty much kill him. There's nothing really that he can do. Um, and In terms of analysis and deeper meaning, this is a very straightforward work. What's significant about it is it's the deception, it's the way that the enslaved people work together tirelessly to get one over on Delano, the way that they took over the ship, um, and um, and really how it says a lot about the times, and how, slavery was conducted. Um, and in the end, I mean, they go to trial, and Babo is killed as if he did something wrong. But, he was just a man who was enslaved. He was enslaved. I mean, if you're enslaved and you're put in chains, you didn't do anything wrong. You're just being sold as property, and you're revolted. Um, it's in your right to try to get your freedom as best as you can. But, the courts didn't see it that way. They just saw a misbehaved slave, and he needed to pay for it, and he did pay for it by having his head chopped off and his body being burned. Um, so, this work, there's a lot to uncover about it, because it's just the the different sides of it. There's so many different sides of it, to look upon, from the conversations between Benito Cereno and Delano, and the strangeness of Babo and um, Cereno having these close conversations, and really the slowness of Delano not witnessing from the beginning that the slaves had taken over. I mean, because they had taken over, and there's nothing that Amash Delano, for the like, he really figures that closer to the end, the very end, when Benito Cereno was like, "Please don't make me go back. Don't make me stay with don't make me stay in my ship. And Delano really didn't get it until the very end, when it was almost too late. So that was very fascinating. But that's pretty much what happens within this work. It's a very straightforward work. A ship gets taken over by a slave ship gets taken over by its slaves. Delano comes aboard the to inspect the drifting ship. He gets tricked into believing that the obedient slaves were so obedient that they didn't need chains uh, to be controlled. And in the end, he finally figures it out. They go to trial, and a lot of slaves die. They get judged. Babo, the leader, gets killed, and Benito Cereno ultimately dies from, I guess, trauma from being taken over by slaves. And the work is kind of very chilling and unforgiving, because the slaves, they are men. They were forcibly taken, turned into slaves, and they wanted their freedom as best as they could, but they couldn't get it, and for that they died. So yeah, that's the work. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. And I'll see you guys in the next video.